Born to Garrus Vakarian and his mother around 2158 CE, Garrus grew up on Palaven with a father who was mostly absent because of his career. This left Garrus's mother as a stay-at-home parent to Garrus and his sister Saleon. Like most Turians, Garrus was born to a military family and lived under the shadow of his father. At the age of 15, like all Turians, Garrus began his military training. When he began training with his father, he couldn't hit his targets and wanted to give up. He didn't want to learn how to use his sniper, and he struggled to carry the rifle, and it often hurt his arms. He didn't want to continue, but his father wouldn't let him give up, instead teaching Garrus the importance of perseverance and determination in the face of life's challenges. At a young age, Garrus's mother would be injured in a hit and run, and her health would suffer. Garrus would step up where his father wouldn't. After being injured, she told Garrus to not come back to Palaven since he was at work on the Citadel. But Garrus thought his father wouldn't leave work anyways, feeling his father prioritized his work over his family. He was growing resentful. Instead, Garrus stayed by his mother's side, and by doing so, he gave up his off-world, one-time opportunity scholarship, letting the shuttle leave without him. Unlike his father, he would be there for his mother at any cost. He also accepted that he'd have to give up his dream and accept that he was an officer's son. This meant his father would only support his dreams if they aligned with his father's dream for his son, which was for Garrus to become a CSEC officer just like him. Years later, he would join CSEC Academy and work under his father. He was both doing his Turian duty and following the career path that his father wanted for him, but he struggled operating within the rules and regulations of CSEC. While Garrus's father operated strictly by the books, Garrus and him would butt heads over their approaches to the job. Garrus wanted to take action to get things done and to actually stop criminals at any cost. That meant evidence tampering, witness coercion, and even assault. During one particular case, after finding out about Garrus's methods, his father intervened and released Garrus's suspect as his methods didn't follow guidelines. This caused tension between the two, and after this they avoided each other while they worked. Even though his missions weren't always successful, at some point Garrus did successfully bust a Batarian spy ring that was attempting to assassinate a counselor. He was good at his job, even if his methods weren't exactly correct. At one point, he was also a potential Spectre candidate, and he could have received special Spectre training when he was younger. But his father blocked his candidacy, as his father hates how Spectres operate completely unregulated. And Garrus didn't seem too bothered by his father's intervention about this. But it would be clear later on that his father and him would have different ways of helping the galaxy. As Garrus continued his path as a CSEC officer, the differences between how his father and him would approach the job would be very different, and this would put a major strain on their relationship. Garrus sees himself as a good soldier, but a terrible Turian. He knows he is skilled and disciplined, but lacks the respect of the military structure and chain of command. Garrus's inability to follow the rules would be a lasting trait, and after becoming a full CSEC officer, he would continue to do things his way, even while after going after Saren. After being put in charge of Saren's investigation, Garrus tried to get evidence of Saren's betrayal, but it was near impossible because of different technicalities or regulation, and after struggling to find little evidence, the investigation was closed. So Garrus decided to do things his way. Going after the only lead that Garrus had, he makes his way to the med clinic where he meets Commander Shepard for the first time. A fight breaks out and Shepard and Garrus make quick work of the mercenaries, and from here Garrus tells Shepard what he knows about Saren. Garrus sees Saren as a disgrace to the Turian race and is desperate to stop him. After his frustrations with CSEC, joining Shepard is his best bet to stop the rogue Spectre. And here begins Garrus's journey with Shepard. Garrus's journey with Shepard will greatly influence how he grows and changes, and with Shepard being a few years older than Garrus, Shepard becomes a bit of a mentor to him. Shepard will influence how Garrus follows rules and orders. A renegade Shepard will influence Garrus to ignore rules and be more ruthless, which will cause him to lean more into a possible Spectre path, just like Shepard. A Paragon Shepard will influence Garrus to be the opposite, more compassionate and by the books just like his father. And in Garrus's personal quest, we start to see some of Shepard's influence. During a previous investigation, Garrus was investigating the black market trade on the Citadel. And here Garrus found that the black market was selling body parts at an increased rate. Trying to get the bottom of where the body parts were coming from, Garrus inspects Dr. Saleon's lab and interrogates his employees. During one interrogation, one of the employees began bleeding out, and they discovered fresh incisions all over his body. It turned out that Dr. Saleon was exploiting his own employees, who had come to him out of desperation. He used them as test subjects, cloning their organs and growing them inside their own bodies, and then later he would harvest them to sell. With enough evidence to arrest Dr. Saleon, CSEC attempted to arrest the corrupt doctor. He destroyed his own lab and grabbed some of his test subjects and fled the Citadel. Garrus, being the ruthless officer that he was, wanted to shoot the ship down. But CSEC denied this and the doctor escaped. After joining Shepard, Garrus can share the location of Dr. Saleon and finally take him down. And here we can start to see some of that influence from Shepard. Garrus can either shoot the doctor or try to take him in for questioning, which does result in the doctor dying as well. Either way, Garrus tried, but this is a major turning point for Garrus. He would then go on to help Shepard bring down Saren, finally putting an end to his mission from even before meeting Shepard. But of course, this was just the beginning of the Reaper threat. After the attack on the Citadel and taking down Saren, Shepard and crew were sent to hunt down any remaining Geth resistance. The Normandy is sent to the Omega Nebula, where multiple ships disappeared without a trace. After 4 days of searching for Geth activity, the Normandy is attacked by a collector cruiser and Shepard is killed. With Shepard gone, Garrus returns to the Citadel. In the 2 years Shepard is dead, Garrus seems a bit lost, trying to go back to his old life at first, but it just doesn't work. His story can be a bit different here depending on how Shepard influenced him. After Shepard's death, Garrus can either rejoin CSEC, decline to rejoin CSEC, and/or begin Spectre training if Shepard encouraged it. Whatever path he was on always results in him becoming frustrated with the red tape of the Citadel. With life after the Reaper attack looking very different, Garrus would run into the same suspect his father let loose years prior. Except now, Garrus didn't have any rules stopping him from taking him down. Angered by his methods, Garrus's father and Garrus once again butt heads. Tensions would rise between the two, and after this, Garrus would cut ties with CSEC entirely. And then he would go to Omega, where he didn't have any rules that stopped him from taking down the bad guys. The rules and regulations, on top of the dismissal of the Reaper threat by the Council, wore on Garrus at this point, and he'd become more jaded. After what happened to Shepard and realizing the Council wasn't going to do anything about the Reaper threat, on top of tensions with his father, Garrus realizes that he just can't do anything here. But on Omega he could do something. He'd help elderly people and prevent robberies, and do whatever he could for the people of Omega. He helped a Turian that was being attacked by a Krogan, and from here this Turian and him would form an alliance. The Turian, Sidonis, and Garrus decided to build a team to help clean out Omega's criminals. And from here on out, he'd call himself Archangel. Words of Archangel and his deeds spread more and more would join until there were 12 of them. The team was comprised of mostly mercenaries who wanted to atone. Ex-military, former CSEC agents, and security consultants. One Salarian was an explosive expert, their tech expert was a Batarian, and together they'd stop any crime on Omega that they could. They declared war on Omega's criminals, stopping their shipments and disrupting their activities, with the intent to piss them off. Archangel and his band of mercenaries caused so much disruption on Omega that 3 merc bands banded together to take them down, which Arya said never happened unless there was a full-scale war. The team was growing, and with more successful missions, their money was also piling up. They wanted to settle down with that money, but Garrus didn't want that. He pushed them, refusing to listen or understand. It wasn't enough for him to make Omega better. He wanted to purge every single criminal on Omega. He was blinded by his mission, and he didn't see the cracks in his team. On one specific mission, Sidonis called Garrus to where he was. And when Garrus arrived, no one was there. There was no sign of trouble that Sidonis had told Garrus about. Sidonis had been captured by the Blue Suns and had been forced to trick Garrus to leave their hideout. Realizing he'd been tricked, Garrus returned to the hideout, finding that it had been bombed and that his team had been gunned down. In this moment, he thought of his father, and every argument they'd ever had. Garrus thought about his father trying to teach him and how Garrus fought him so hard every time. He didn't listen to his father, and in this moment, he regretted it. The loss of his team would greatly affect Garrus, and he would engrave their names into his helmet, scratching out Sidonis once he learned of his betrayal. In the final moments of the firefight, when Garrus was alone trying to take down the remaining mercenaries who had just wiped out his team, he calls his father. Thinking he's in his final moments, Garrus tries to make peace with his father. He apologizes for being so stubborn and for always butting heads with him. Castus, realizing Garrus is actively in combat, begins giving him advice, telling him, no matter how bad things are falling apart around you, as long as you have at least one bullet left, you'll still get the job done, understand? You finish up what you have to do there, and then you come on home to Palaven. We have a lot to sort out. Garrus, thinking he's about to die and that he's in his final moments, Shepard appears. Garrus, realizing he still has another shot, tells his father thank you and that he'll come home, and that his odds just got better. During this fight, Garrus would be targeted by a gunship and suffer multiple wounds to his face that would leave a scar. The injuries were so severe, cybernetics would be used to keep him alive. Despite almost dying, this firefight would only boost Archangel's reputation, and Liara even once asked Garrus if he really did kill 3 Blue Suns with 1 bullet. And Garrus tells her that the third guy had a heart attack, so it wouldn't be fair to count him. After this, he rejoins Shepard. And from here, Shepard learns how much Garrus has changed in the 2 years that Shepard was dead. From here, they continue to fight against the Reaper threat. Garrus' loyalty mission revolves around him getting revenge for his betrayed team. And with Shepard's help, he can take down Sidonis. Garrus has never been one to let things go, not satisfied until the job is complete. And with Sidonis, he wants revenge for his betrayal. This results in either Sidonis being shot and killed by Garrus, or being let go by Garrus, and later turning himself in for the murder of 10 people. Honestly, him turning himself in is mostly performative, as C-Sec can't do anything about his actions on Omega, so ultimately Sidonis walks free. But with this route, it's revealed Sidonis is suffering from survivor's guilt, and that his betrayal was not done in malice but in coercion. Whatever happens, Garrus now has closure. After the suicide mission, if Garrus survives, then Shepard and the entire crew will separate. Shepard is arrested and remains in jail for 6 months after the destruction of the Batarian worlds. During this time, Garrus returns to his father, realizing how dangerous the Reaper threat is. He feels he has no other option but to plead for help from his father, since the Council is still actively working against Shepard, ignoring the threat of the Reaper invasion. Surprisingly, Castus believes the story of the Reapers, and with the help of his father, Garrus and Castus convince the current Primarch, Fedorian, that the Reaper threat is real. He wasn't easy to convince, but once he understands the gravity of the situation, he gives Garrus a Reaper task force, as a supplemental task force to aid the military. Once this task force is approved, he continues to fortify Palaven's military strength on the moon of Menae. His task force would harden their lines of communication, expand emergency stockpiles across the colonies, and improve their early warning detection protocols. Here he acts as a military consultant to provide information on the Reapers. Once Shepard is released from jail, they go to Menae searching for the Primarch. But by the time they arrive, Primarch Fedorian's shuttle is shot down and he is killed. Here Shepard and Garrus reunite and learn that Adrian Victus has now become the new Primarch of Palaven, according to Turian hierarchy. Shepard, successful in their mission to retrieve the new Primarch, then returns to the Normandy to continue their mission. Garrus joins Shepard once again and resumes his same post in the main battery where he used to previously tend to his calibrations. A trip to the Citadel has Garrus tending to the refugees, helping them with supplies and housing. His people, whether they be on Palaven or the Citadel, are important to him. But even still, Garrus knows the harshness of war and isn't optimistic for their recovery. Still, he provides them whatever he can. After visiting Grissom Academy, Garrus wishes that Turians had a Grissom Academy of their own. He also wishes that he would have been able to learn to paint like he always wanted. When the bomb on Tuchanka is discovered, Rex pretends that Garrus knew the whole time, but he was just messing with Garrus to see him squirm. While Garrus didn't know about the bomb, He is upset that he wasn't told about it by the Turian military. And even though Rex and Garrus' relationship has influenced how Garrus now feels about the genophage, he still has reservations. Once the bomb is disarmed, Garrus continues assisting the Turian hierarchy. At this point, they have learned of the Crucible, and Garrus assists in coordinating ships provided by the hierarchy to help in the construction of the Crucible. By now, Garrus' reputation has only grown, as has his power within the hierarchy, though he doubts his ability as a leader. Primarch Victus has tasked Garrus with coordinating all Turian fleet activities, and it weighs on Garrus, with so many lives hinging on him and his decisions. After a conversation with Shepard, no matter how Shepard influences Garrus, he realizes that sacrifices will and must be made for this war, and he has to be strong enough to make these choices, no matter the consequences. It's unclear if Garrus' mother's health continued to deteriorate after her injury from the Hidden Run, but through messages between Garrus and his sister Solana, we learn that during the events of the suicide mission that his mother wasn't responding to treatments and isn't doing very well. His mother has Corpalis syndrome that is very hard to treat, and its neurological degeneration is almost impossible to stop. With the failure of the treatments, they were considering an off-world treatment center, and were going to look to Salarian doctors for help. Garrus pays for these treatments, sending payments while he's on Shepard's crew. He sends a large donation to the Helos Medical Institute, and all the fees are waived for his mother's tests and trials and new treatment for the disease. It's clear from the conversation that tensions between Solana and Garrus are high. She is upset at him for being gone on whatever mission he's doing. In a way, Garrus has become just like his father, in both prioritizing other matters over his family, and also being gone. It's clear Garrus does feel guilty about it, but ultimately he's trying to protect his family and the entire galaxy from the Reapers. When the Reaper War is close to reaching its peak, Garrus is updated about his family's status. His father Castus is still stranded on Palaven, trying to escape on departing shuttles. His sister Solana has broken her leg, and while it isn't a life-threatening injury, the call is cut before he gets further information. He doesn't mention his mother here, so she's likely getting treatment off-world. Garrus is worried, hoping for the best for his family, and like most Turians, he believes in spirits, who he prays to during these times. These spirits would inspire them and embody the emotions of those around them, such as courage spirits for military units. Later, after watching Thessia fall, he would later get confirmation that his family did successfully flee Palaven. Seeing the destruction on Thessia, Garrus realizes how utterly hopeless their fight against the Reapers is, and calls on Primarch Victus to issue a full retreat until the construction of the Crucible is finalized. In a few final moments before the major Reaper battle, Garrus takes Shepard to a docking bay on the Citadel to see who is the better shot, looking up to Shepard for most of their journey. In this, Garrus is better than Shepard at something, and if you don't let him win, you're a monster. At the end of the Reaper War, Shepard will most likely die. Whether they sacrifice themselves to synthesis, control, or destroy endings, Shepard can only survive in the perfect destroy ending. If Shepard and Garrus were romantically involved, maybe Shepard recovers, and they both retire to somewhere warm and tropical and adopt those Krogan babies they talked about. Both humans and Turians can live to roughly 150, so hopefully the two live long lives together. If Shepard and Garrus were not in a relationship, then Garrus most likely resumed his military duties and continue his work under Primarch Victus, maybe finally pursuing that Spectre position. Maybe he even became the next Primarch at some point. If we ever see him again, I'm sure he made a name for himself within the Turian hierarchy and the wider galaxy. His journey with Shepard shaped the galaxy, and there's no Shepard without Vakarian. And that is the story of Garrus Vakarian. This video was a little hard to do. I both feel like I didn't include enough details while also feeling like I included too much. I tried not to focus too much on many of the obvious story plot points, but let me know what you think. Should I recap the events of the game as well, or just focus on the smaller character details? I will be doing more of these, covering characters from the original trilogy and other events from the world. By the time Mass Effect 5 comes out, which yes, will be in a few years, I want to have covered everything. Every character backstory, every historical event, the timeline, and literally everything that could be in Mass Effect 5. Alongside all of my theories, of course. So let me know what you want to see, let me know what you want to cover, and thank you so much for watching. Thank you to my Patreon members, my Commander Shepards, and my Conrad Verners, and thank you to my YouTube members as well. Thank you guys so much for watching, and see you next time.